So, testing, 1, 2, 3. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. Thanks for being here. Josie Wales, thank you very much for your kind comments. And let me see, how does the Sharia fall under the practice? How does the Sharia fall under practice? The CD, if you can rewrite that, please, so it can make some sense. Yeah, so YouTube shows me I have an excellent connection, so I'll assume we're all good. Let me know if you can all hear me correctly. Hopefully my audio is functioning as it should. Right. Um, so, any questions before I begin, everyone? If you have any questions about Sharia or Islam, drop them in the chat. Try to tag me with my name so it stands out in yellow so I can see it. Eva, welcome. Good to see you. Okay, yeah, the delay should only be about 4 or 5 seconds, I think. Actually, let me see. 1001, 1002, 2.5 second delay. That's not bad. Okay, so the delay is very short. Okay, guys, enough of that. Let me begin then. If you have any questions, as I said, please drop them in the chat. Okay, so last time we ended up with the Dar al-Islam. So I'll briefly run through this again. Welcome, Dragon. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Right, and then I'll continue with these phrases and words as we go. Okay. He says they have their own Sharia interpretation, but not quite different from Sunni, just slight disagreement. Okay, right. So in Islam, Dar al-Islam. Yeah, we'll get into Dar al-Salam. There's something interesting about that. So, Dar al-Islam, the land of Islam, the whole territory in which the law of Islam prevails. Okay, all fine and well. And it says here, its unity resides in the community, the unity of the law, and the guarantees assured to members of the Ummah. Okay, and everything outside the Dar al-Islam, or the house of Islam, the abode of Islam, is the Dar al-Harb. Harb means war. So if you're not inside the Dar al-Islam, you live in the house of war. Last time we went through the Dar al-Kharaj, a brothel in the Muslim West. This meant, according to the Encyclopaedia entry, this meant Andalusian Spain. So of course they were allowing brothels to exist so they could tax them, and they were taxing it utilizing the law of land tax. Okay, now Dar al-Salam is the abode of peace, right? The house of peace, a name of paradise in the Quran. Also, notice a name for the city of Baghdad. So this is rather interesting, a name for the city of Baghdad. If there's any interest in me digging deeper into any one of these references by going, for instance, you can learn more about this entry by going here to volume 2, page 128. If there's any interest, do let me know, and I will make that little detour. Okay, then they have this Dar al-Sinna, which is for stockpiling of arms, very interesting, which gave rise to the word arsenal in the Mediterranean languages. Fantastic. So the religion of peace was responsible for stockpiling of arms and the creation of arsenals. That's peaceful. That's peaceful when you need to build up stockpiles of grenades, Kalashnikovs, rockets. That's peaceful. Peaceful indeed. Right. Dar al-Sul, the House of Truce. These are territories not conquered by Muslim troops, but by buying peace by the giving of tribute, the payment of which guarantees truce or armistice, otherwise known as, we discussed previously, Deengeld. Hola, hello. Right, so Deengeld, which means that you keep paying them, and it's extortion, it's what the mafia do. So the religion of peace has its little mafia component. Let's continue. By the way, I'm using volume 13 of the Encyclopaedia of Islam. Links in the description. Okay, Dariba, a tax applied to the whole category of taxes, which in practice were added to the basic taxes. So what are the basic taxes in Islam? And of course we can look these up later if you want. Zakat, Jizya, and Kharaj. Kharaj, if I recall, forms part of the land tax. And of course prostitution was taxed according to the land tax rulings. So apart from jizya, these taxes form the basis of the official fiscal system of Islam. So basically, Islam survived most honestly on jizya. right? It collapsed financially when they no longer had dhimmis that they could extort money from. Right, let's continue. Nothing here, so now I'll move to the next page. So, Darura, Dariba, property tax of Islam. Yeah. Actually, let's see Dariba, see if we, yeah, Dariba, property tax. Well, it says a tax applied to the whole category of taxes, to which they added, okay, the kharaj, which we discussed previously. Okay, now Darura. We've discussed this, and I've done my show on. I've done two shows. One a primer on, and one a much longer show with Adam Sika on the Islamic doctrine of lying. I might do that live on my channel at some point to go through the details of the doctrine of lying, which will be shorter than the lengthy show which had a Q&A at the end, right? Which I did on Telegram. So, but those two are available, and the one is a primer which should give you a thorough overview. So understand that Islamic lying is much more than just taqiyya. Please stop focusing on taqiyya. It's a waste of your time. Okay, taqiyya is a very minor, very insignificant detail in the whole doctrine of lying. It's one of many, but it's a very minor one, so please ignore it. Let me see, but Islam doesn't even consider itself as a religion. It calls itself a deen, not a religion. How can it be the religion of peace? You know, Josie, I'm going to slap myself because you're right. I keep saying that. It's not a religion. It doesn't call itself a religion. It calls itself a deen. A deen is a political system which is based on subjugation and dominance. So it's a totalitarian, oppressive political system, and that is true. So yes, how can it be the religion of peace? Correct, Bullspeed. It's a political system, but it's also a legal system. And in fact, it also has a system of warfare, just like you have the Sun Tzu's Art of War. Islam has a very similar component. Dini Islam, surrender pact. Now there you go, surrender pact, surrender to the horde. Right. These are the Borg, and you will be assimilated. Right. So darura, necessity. So darura is normally coupled with a doctrine called tesir. Okay. So tesir is ease and necessity, to ease all the demands of Islam, to loosen the requirements placed upon you. And darura is when you have a very subjective need to break the laws of Islam, to hide yourself for whatever reason, but to deceive, right? So in law, it is to do an action forbidden by the law. So Muslims are able to do any action that they deem fit, which requires the breaking of any and all Islamic laws, right? So they can eat pork, they can drink wine, they can lie to you, they can do whatever is required. So that's darura, right? And they say here that the legal schools agree. So the four, oh wow, thank you very, very much. I appreciate the donation. Dardir Druha. Thank you. So the prohibitions of religious character may be disregarded in cases of necessity. Now, in my discussion on Islamic lying, we went through the details from the Sharia from different sources, and we showed how deep it's pages and pages. Now, I do want to mention something very important. Muslims will commonly say, but St. Paul lied, or St. Paul encouraged lying in this verse. Now, clearly they will take a rather dishonest, uncharitable view of a single verse. Now, here's the question. Where is St. Paul's chapter or his book on lying? Where is his whole detailed exposition on lying, where he teaches different kinds of lies, when to lie, how to lie, and who to lie to? Now the problem is that doesn't exist, so Muslims are going to have a hard time showing you that, so they have to pick a verse and try to bring your attention to it and make you forget everything that would have to go around it. Whereas Islam, as you know, allows lying, and I showed page after page after page within an entire chapter. In fact, several chapters on how to lie, when to lie, who to lie to, and so on. So they've actually written a book on lying. We can actually find it and read it, which I have. So do find that. It's my last couple of videos done in the last 2 weeks. So have a look at that. So understand. So taking one single verse, taking literally 10 words out of the Bible and saying, hey, that no, because the Bible does not teach you to lie. Right? There's no instruction manual. Islam has an instruction manual on lying. So yeah, so Erkan says, where's the Hindu book on lying? Erkan Albguni says, where's the Tao book on lying? Correct. And where's the Sikh book on lying? Correct. That would be interesting. Show me a copy, and then we'll say, okay, they have a doctrine of lying. But Islam has a book on lying, a whole book, a whole chapter by its greatest scholar ever, the man known as the Proof of Islam, the man with the only Muslim scholar with that title. So understand, there's a big difference taking a few words, 5 or 6 words out of a verse, out of the entire Bible, and say, hey, that's about lying. No, that's not sufficient. Then show me the book. Well, Islam has the book. No, no one else does. So let's see, have I missed any comments? It also reflects the Islamic expansion since its illegitimate birth. Yeah, good grief. Okay, now notice, okay, prohibitions of a religious character. Now remember, the religious and legal are the same, right? In terms of the Sharia, there is no distinction between religious and legal. So prohibitions of the religious character may be disregarded, and offences committed under the rule of necessity are excused with no form of punishment. So that allows any kind of abuse of this privilege, shall we say. Okay, so let's see, I haven't missed anything. Okay, let us continue. So there's nothing down here. Let me jump to here. Okay. As I read through these, I go through this every so now and again, and as I read through this, I actually do find new terms and phrases that I've missed. So at some point we can go through it again, and I can pick up on some of the terms that I've added since. Right. As I said, you can download this check in the description. So, dhikr, right? Remembering Allah, reciting the names of Allah, the tireless repetition of an ejaculatory litany, a religious service common to all the mystical fraternities. Now again, we are seeing an aspect of the occult, the quote-unquote spiritual aspect of Islam, which is actually the occult, the mystical aspect of Islam, the secret of Islam, right? These are the secret rituals which are being referred to when they speak of the mystical fraternities. And when they speak of the mystical fraternities, they're also referring to the Sunnis. Remember the saints, you have the saints of the church, but also you have the saints of Islam. And the saints of Islam are all Sufis. And of course, as Muslims will tell us, Islam has nothing to do with Islam. So, yeah. Okay, now they say here the revelation sent down to Muhammad, dhikr, is the revelation sent down to Muhammad. Now, let me try and explain something from Gnosticism. Let me see if I can get my thoughts are clear enough on this to get this across correctly. Islam is Gnostic. It explicitly claims to be Gnostic. I've shown you that before. Now, within Gnosticism, within some sects of Gnosticism, you have a good God who was attacked by a bad God. This bad God broke off pieces of the good God that fell from the perfect paradise, fell into earth, and became trapped in matter, which was evil. The matter was made by the bad God. Okay? So this matter is now trapped inside of the bad God. Sorry, it's trapped inside of you as a human. That's your soul, right? And the point of the Gnostics was that they need to commune with Allah, they need to commune with God, so that they can connect with the spiritual essence, free themselves from the world of matter, and free their spirit, and take it back into this, what they call the pleroma, the fullness, right? They can take it back and reunite these elements of the divine. That's why you'll see a lot of New Age people saying, but you are a God too, because technically you are a part of the original creator God, right? That soul, that essence, that spark within you is actually that holy divine essence of the monad, right? Which equates very much to the Tawhid. So this fell into the world of matter, which was created by the evil God, because matter is imperfect, whereas the world of spirit is pure and perfect, right? So through these practices, now within these texts, within this discussion of Islamic mysticism, you will see things like pre-rational and post-rational, right? These are states that they go into, states before rationality and states after rationality. Now the reason they have to go through these and repeat these words and phrases is, and actually there's something that I will show you that's related to this in a moment, but the reason they have to go into these states is that the world of matter is imperfect, made by an evil God, and that evil God is very often associated with Yahweh. Okay, so Yahweh is the evil God. So now your rational mind is part of the creation of matter, because it's expressing itself through the world of matter. Therefore the rational mind is tainted and corrupt. So the only way to free yourself is to disassociate yourself from the rational mind, because the rational mind is evil. It is lying to you. It is wrong. It is the creation of the evil God Yahweh. So therefore, you have to break free using these trances, using these mystical rituals to go into this world outside, this pre-rational and post-rational world through these chants and spells and other rituals, so that you then enter into the correct mind, which is now freed from the world of rationality, which is the world of evil. That's why everything is inverted. That's why everything is upside down. That's why wokeism is morality backwards, right? Because they believe the world of matter of evil. Of course, from the Christian doctrine point of view, God made the world and it was good. For them, the world is evil, the world of matter. And even in Islam, the Sharia says that matter is cursed. So, in that sense, fully concurs with the Gnostic view that matter is evil, that only the world of spirit is clean. So understand now, the more people that are born, the more that you have the soul, the spirit, these sparks of divinity within us are divided and divided and divided. Now, for instance, if you've heard of something like the Georgia Guidestones, these Georgia Guidestones want humanity to be no more than 500 million. They want to reduce the population down to 500 million. You've heard many stories of these whatever random groups people like, but let's call them conspiracy theories, that they need to reduce the world down to a minimum. So the reason is that they then want to concentrate these sparks that are trapped in the matter, these sparks of the divinity trapped inside matter. They can then reduce them by killing off everyone else and then sending that back. That spark goes back. But then within the rest, they're able to then free those. This is why they need to bring down the number of people on the world to reduce the number of sparks, and then these people can then, it's easier to have fewer of them and then free those sparks into back to the monad. So understand these are Gnostic ideas. So the whole satanic concept is very Gnostic as well. So this is why they have this. This is why it's so backwards, and this is why Islam also has no problem killing you, right? So anyway, but that's a longer discussion for another day. But hopefully that gave you some sort of insight into what this would all be about. Josie Wales says, Lloyd has forgotten more about Islam than you or I will ever know. He's also a gifted teacher and imparts his knowledge with a good sense of humor. Thank you. Thank you very much. Who was Devoted Sign? Did I miss something? Okay. Okay, love Devoted Sign. Love this guy's knowledge. Thank you. Okay, guys, so the revelation. Okay, so let's move on. Actually, you know what? There's something that maybe I need to show you. So let me try and find this. Let me try and find you a book that you may find to be of interest. Okay. So tell you what, I'm probably gonna have some difficulty, but it might be worth looking this up. So let's have a quick look here. This is related to the Templar Knights, but let's ignore that for a moment. All right, let me just close that. You may or may not have heard of a man called Baron Rudolf von Sabottendorf, not his real name. Now, he was born 1875, died in 1945 under mysterious circumstances. People feel that he was killed by the Nazis, very likely to have been killed by the Nazis. Now, he was a Freemason and he was a practitioner of alchemy. Now, alchemy is something that we have to get into as well. That's something very interesting in terms of Islamic mysticism and Islamic occult practice. So in 1900, he moves to Turkey, where he meets the Jewish, now they say Jewish, Termudi family, who introduce him to Rosicrucianism, the Rosy Cross, and led to his initiation into a local Masonic lodge. Fine and well. Now they call this the local Jewish family. Now these are Jews. These are, if I recall, these should be Frankists, or these are no Sabbateans, right? These are followers of Shabtai Tzvi who converted to Islam, what, 400-500 years ago. So instead of saying a Muslim family, they say Jewish family. Now, if you converted 500 years ago, maybe you're no longer Jewish. There's a small possibility, it's tiny. Okay, and they are Sufis. So he was introduced into a Muslim Sufi family. So understand that this is just a wonderful attempt to smear Jews again, and to, of course, Islam must not be blamed. So then he learns from them Sufism. He learns the occult aspects of Sufism. So in 1910, he founds a lodge of the Bektashi Sufi order in Constantinople. He returns to Germany, and in 1917, he founds the Thule Society, which is an occult organization that led to the German Workers' Party. So in 1918, the Thule Society, this occult Islamic Muslim society, becomes the German Workers' Party. socialists. And then in 1919, a man called Adolf Hitler joins the German Workers' Party, and he then changes its name to the Nazi Party. So just I need to do a long talk about this. I need to do a couple of hours just on this topic one day, but basically the Nazis come out of an occult Sufi Muslim Islamic society. Okay? Nazism is a direct link. It's a direct result of this occult Gnosticism based out of the Sufis. So then he eventually leaves the Thule Society because of its increasing political involvement. He flees to Turkey and then eventually he gets killed. But there's something on this that I need to. Um, no, there's something unrelated to that. And darn it, there's a book. Okay, let me try and find this. Because this is going to be very interesting to you as well. So, okay, so I'm going to bring up this book, Secret Practices of the Sufi Freemasons. Now, not everything that I want is going to be here, okay? But notice Secret Practices of the Sufi Freemasons, not the Jewish Freemasons, Sufi, Muslim Freemasons, the Islamic teachings at the heart of alchemy. Now, this just goes weird. Okay, so hold on, let me see what comments I've missed. Now I know Muslims reject everything in the Old Testament after the birth of Ishmael. Do they pretty much also reject everything before that? Because the Gnostics reject created God in Genesis. There must be a relationship somewhere there. But yeah, these are questions I need to tackle at length later. So, by Baron Rudolf von Sebottendorf. Okay, so that's a little bit about him. And let's see what they say. So, I'm just going to bring this up. Okay, secret practices of the Sufi Freemasons. So, let's have a look here. This might be. Let me just go to. Looks like I'm going to have to use google.com. So, excuse the interruption. If I can find this, I keep meaning to do this. Okay, yeah. So this should be enough. This should be sufficient for us for the moment. So this book, Secret Practices of the Sufi Freemasons, again, Islamic Freemasons, it reveals the secret practices of the Bektashi order of Sufis. It shows how this order, also known as Oriental Freemasonry, preserves the ancient spiritual doctrines forgotten by modern Freemasonry. Explains how to transform the soul into the alchemical magnum opus by combining Masonic hand grips and the abbreviated letters of the Quran. So that Alif, Lam, Mim, and all those letters in the Quran, all those meaningless words. This explains what they are for. They are used in those trances to achieve those pre-rational, post-rational, to break from the rational mind and go into these altered states, which allow you to free yourself from the cursed world of matter and the cursed rational mind and enter into the irrational mind and then commune with Allah. Understand? So they claim that they taught all of these Freemasonic groups and that they understand what these secret letters of the Quran mean. And so originally published, okay, and it preserves the ancient spiritual doctrines forgotten by modern Freemasonry. So when they speak of the magnum opus, when they transform the soul into the magnum opus, they mean the perfect man or the perfected man, okay, the qutb, right? Also known as, well, Muhammad was the first perfect man, also known as the insan al-kamil, okay, the perfect man, insane as a camel, right? So you have to use these Masonic hand signs and grips, and then use a precise schedule and these formulas, that dhikr that we spoke of, that whole blah 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 that you do with Allah, remembering Allah, lovely euphemisms. They incorporate spiritual power into the body and transform the soul from its base state into a noble, godlike state. Now don't forget, the Nazis walked away with the idea that they were the Übermensch, the Superman. right? And of course, everyone else was the Untermensch, the lower man, right? And of course, the Übermensch had to dominate, just like Deen, dominate and subjugate the Untermensch and kill them, just like jihad. So I wonder where Nazis got those ideas. I'm thinking, can't decide. Maybe you guys can help me. But hopefully you can see the direct Islamic connection here. Okay, so Bottendorf explains each abbreviated word in the Quran and the hand gestures that go with them in the order and duration for each exercise. Okay, and an examination of alchemy's Islamic heritage. And it shows how the traditions of Oriental Freemasonry can ennoble the self and lead to higher knowledge, secret Gnostic knowledge. Understand? Islam is occultism. It is through and through occultism. It is Gnosticism. So yeah, hopefully you guys are seeing something. One day I'll do a talk about this, but this deserves a much longer, more detailed discussion. Okay, so look, now that's not to say that I believe any of this necessarily, just so you know. I mean, it's just that they believe it, and this is what they believe, and we need to take them at face value if this is, this is what they believe. Okay, so let me close that. Okay, so get yourself a copy of this book. I haven't read it yet, to be honest. I will. I need to do a show on this, so I've got some notes I want to prepare on this. Okay, right. So, dhikr. So hopefully that was worth learning. Josie, what else is weird random letters in the Quran, freaky stuff, playing around with the occult devil. Yeah. So the random, it's too small in the screen. How is that? Because I'm using full screen. Let me just go to YouTube myself to have a look. Give me a second. Let me mute my tab. Looks fine to me. I'm gonna go on my phone as well. If you guys say it's too small in the screen. Uh, okay, so I'm on my phone. I can read this on my phone. It looks fine. Okay, guys. So it looks. I'm not sure what the issue is there, but it looks perfectly fine. And yeah, it's looking perfectly fine to me. YouTube must be messing around with me again. YouTube plays with the audio for some people, and it's looking perfectly fine. I've checked now my. I've checked a couple of different sources. It looks perfectly fine. It's legible on my. Um, I'll bump it up a little bit, but it looks perfectly fine on my devices. I've checked. Okay, guys. So I'll continue here. Uh, yeah, it might be YouTube messing around with me again. Okay, Dhimma. Now, this is an important word that we want to go through today. So, Dhimma, it's the term used to designate the sort of indefinitely renewed contract through which, so you are always under the contract of Dhimma, okay? Through which the Muslim community accords hospitality and quote unquote protection, the same way the mafia gives you protection. Deen XYZ welcome. To members of the other religions on conditions of their acknowledging the domination of Islam. And the people who are, quote unquote, the lovely euphemism, the beneficiaries are called the people of the Dhimma. Originally, only Jews and Christians were involved. Soon it became necessary to consider the Zoroastrians. And later, in Central Asia, other minor faiths not mentioned in the Quran. So perhaps what they're not stating here in this short summary is that this is how Islam funded itself. This is how it made money. And unfortunately, when you've killed off everyone else, the Jews and Christians weren't sufficient. And in Asia, there weren't many Christians or Jews that they could tax to basically to extort. Yes, Islamic extortion built for speed. So they needed to then stop killing, because remember the choice was convert, pay the jizya, or die, right? So Jews and Christians could pay the jizya, didn't have to convert, didn't have to die. But then eventually the others were given the choice convert or die. But now, since they needed the money, they couldn't kill them all. They didn't want to convert them because then suddenly who's going to pay the jizya? So fine, you could pay the jizya, and that was the only choice available to you. So the audio is a bit soft. Okay, I'm going to turn up my audio next. Okay, so let me turn up my audio. Okay, I've bumped up my audio. Hopefully that is, but guys, YouTube's been doing this. Honestly, YouTube has, some people just have these audio problems. And it seems perfectly fine for everyone. It's perfectly fine when I play it back. It seems to be YouTube doing it. And a dhimmi. So a dhimmi is the beneficiary. And it's lovely the way that they write this. You're the beneficiary of the dhimma. And a dhimmi is defined as against the Muslim and the idolater. So you are an enemy, you fight against them. And also against the Harbi, who's of the same faith but lives in territories not yet under Islam. So the Harbi lives in territories not yet under Islam. So if you're either a dhimmi or you are a Harbi. So, okay, Josie Wells says it's very clear on his end, everything is good, but yeah, YouTube does this. So understand, so you're either Harbi or a dhimmi. So let's have a quick look. Let's go here to the Hedaya. So let's discuss dhimmitude, right? So here we've got what's called the Institutes, Book 9 within the Hedaya, Volume 2. So let's go. Book 9 of the Hedaya. This is the primary Sharia manual of the Hanafi school of fiqh, which is the largest in Islam. They speak of Sayyir, which means war. Now we know these as Sira, okay, the Gospels, biographies of Muhammad, but actually it originally meant war. So Sir is the plural of Sirat, which in its primitive sense signifies regulation in matters spiritual and temporal. Sir in the language of the law more especially applies to the institutes of the Prophet in his wars. So the Sirah is really the record of the warfare of Muhammad. They speak of the manner of waging war, of how Muslims must make war, plunder and the division thereof, and the conquest of infidels. Okay, because it's religion of peace. That's why they divide plunder. Now pirates plunder ships. Pirates plunder towns. Okay, the Vikings plundered people after they burned the town and raped the women, kidnapped the children. They would plunder towns. Now Islam speaks of plunder, which is, as I said, something that, yeah, orcs, Vikings and pirates do. So I have no idea why Islam has to speak of plunder when it's the religion of peace. As we know, it's the religion of warm peace, okay? And then usually in our terms, once we have that peace, we flush. But maybe they mean it in a different way, but that's how I see it. So they speak of the laws concerning the Muslims, of tithe and tribute, and of jizyat or capitation tax, and the laws concerning apostates and rebels. So let's have a look briefly then. So war must be carried on against the infidels at all times by some party of the Muslims. So war must be carried on by a group of Muslims at all times. War can never go away. And it says here in the opening, the introduction, the sacred injunction concerning war is sufficiently observed when it is carried on by any one party or tribe of Muslims. It is then no longer of any force with respect to the rest. It is established as a divine ordinance by the word of Allah, who said in the Quran, slay the infidels. And also by saying of Muhammad, war is permanently, not temporarily, permanently established until the day of judgment, meaning the ordinance respecting war. And war is commanded for the purpose of advancing Islam, which is the true faith. And it says here, meaning jihad fard, or ordained war, to be waged against infidels, termed the holy war. Okay, termed the holy war. Okay, that's all fine and well. And it says here, Muslims making war. So if some Muslims make war, it is no longer binding upon the rest. And if no Muslims were to make war, the whole of the Muslims would incur the criminality of neglecting it. So it is criminal. It is a criminal act for Muslims not to make war, or their souls are damned. Allah will damn them. Okay, all fine and well. That's all very fancy. Let me just go up here, because now it says here, the destruction of the sword is incurred by infidels, even though they are not the first aggressors, as appears from various passages in the sacred writings which are received to this effect. And it states here very bluntly, infidels may be attacked without provocation. Bill Shepherd, thank you very much. Much appreciated. So, infidels may be attacked without provocation. So, because Islam is a religion of peace, okay? The kind of peace where you flush afterwards, as I was saying. Now, notice they mention here qatal, meaning war in its operation, such as fighting and slaying. So they don't mean jihad as in struggle to eat more salads, right? They mean here fighting and slaying. Josie Wales says President Jackson declared war on the Barbary pirates, who was paying 20% of American tax to pay the Barbary pirates to not attack American ships. Exactly. And the Barbary pirates were Muslims. So yeah, I wonder where they got that idea. Can't think. Where did the Nazis get their ideas? Phew, hard to tell. Religion of peace is fabricated war cult. Exactly, XYZ. So understand it's a military. So understand Islam has a military component to go along with its legal and its political component, right? So let's continue here. So we've seen this. I don't want to spend too much time on the manner of waging war. I'm going to jump to the section on jizya, okay, because that's what we're discussing. I could spend the whole day on this. So, okay, let's go to the chapter 8 of jizya, or capitation tax, and do a quick run through of this. So that's the page I'm looking at here. Okay, jizyat, or capitation tax, is of two kinds. Okay, Justinian was forced to pay the Saracens for peace. Yes, the Dengelt that we mentioned earlier, right? Remember, we just discussed that a few minutes ago. I showed the Dengelt, which was basically a payment to prevent them from harming you, from fighting you. BMW, thank you very much. Maybe create a playlist on your channel, Islamic terminology explained. You're welcome, thank you. I shall, yeah, let me do that. I'll try not to be a lazy bum, and I will do that. Um, okay, so jizya is of two kinds. The second species is that which the Imam himself imposes, where he conquers infidels. So let me see. Imams lead prayers and Imams conquer infidels. Imams conquer infidels. Okay, I thought Imams were were leading the religion of peace, but it looks like they're leading war parties that impose Islam on infidels through conquering them. Okay, great. Pardon me. Now notice it says here, capitation tax is due in lieu of destruction. In other words, we can kill you or you can pay us the money. And people go, don't kill me, here's the money. That is known as extortion. That is a crime. That is evil. And this is what Islam does. It's part of the sacred law of Islam. It's part of the Sharia, right? Let me see. Capitation tax serves as an aid to the troops. Because you see, you are supposed to join Islam and then fight in the army to subjugate more of the world. And then what happens is then they take more boys and more men, put them into the army, and then they attack with a larger army, and then they take more people and they have a larger army and attack. And you should be assisting with this process because because they are not able to then do this holy duty of making war on everyone. Therefore, you must pay this punishment, this capitation tax, to aid the troops. Sorry. So capitation tax is due in lieu of assistance with person and property. In other words, so you're not providing assistance with the war, so you need to pay. So it is imposed upon the Kitabis and the Majufis, whatever that is. Okay, it is imposed upon people. So it's not optional. Okay, and imposition is not optional. Capitation tax is to be imposed because this is mentioned in the Quran. And Shafi, so they mention Shafi here, we'll get to that. It is imposed as a return from the mercy and forbearance shown by the Muslims as a substitute for that destruction which is due upon infidels. So in other words, they are being merciful by not murdering you. So to show thanks, you will give them your money, okay, with a glad heart. Okay, so it's a substitute for the destruction. So jizya is not just tax, it is retribution. In fact, it is called punishment. It is called retribution, right? It's retribution for you not assisting with the war effort. So the assistance which every subject of the Muslim government is by the law enjoined to afford towards carrying on the enjoined war with infidels. Enjoined means commanded by Allah. Allevi, well, yeah, it's a polite term. It's thank you, Erkan. Yeah. So understand. So it must be paid by all Muslims as well. This jizya, okay. This is zakat, but they call it zakat. But 1/8 of the zakat goes towards the war effort. So all Muslims are contributing towards the war effort to subjugate all other humans on the planet and to dominate and take over all land on the planet. So understand. So all Muslims in one way or another is contributing to this war effort. Let's continue. Shafi argues that destruction is incurred by all infidels. So Imam Shafi of the Shafi school of jurisprudence, or fiqh, argued that destruction, in other words death, all of you deserve death for not being a Muslim. That's his view. And okay, but the legality of abstaining from it in consideration of a capitation tax. Okay, so basically, yeah, you can pay a little bit of money and we won't murder you right now. So subject to the original penalty, which is destruction. They say destruction, they mean death. So it is lawful to make slaves of the idolaters. Fantastic. If a Muslim army subdues an infidel territory before any capitation tax is established, the inhabitants, so let me read that again. If a Muslim army subdues an infidel territory, that's where you live, before any capitation tax is established, the inhabitants, together with their wives and children, are all plunder. Don't forget, pirates took plunder. And the property of the state, as is, sounds like socialism, sounds like communism, doesn't it? Like actually fascism. Everything inside the state, nothing outside the state. So the state owns you. Sounds like a oppressive, immoral political system. Not sure where I'm getting that idea from. But you are the property of the state. You're a slave. You're a plunder. You're a booty, war booty. As it is lawful to reduce to slavery all infidels. It is lawful under Islam to reduce to slavery all infidels. So there you go. Don't complain. This is the perfect law of Allah, the beautiful, perfect law of Allah. This is why they discuss Sharia on every street corner, give you pamphlets explaining all this to you, because they're not ashamed. As Ali Dawah said, and we're proud of that. Ali, do me a favor. Read this stuff openly on your channel. Don't hide it. Don't hide it. So, see how long people are going to love Islam. So, their infidelity, in other words, you are not a Muslim. You're an infidel. You are infidelity to Allah. Okay, you're cheating on Allah. Their infidelity is also an atrocious nature because they have apostatized and become infidels after having been led into the way of faith and made acquainted with its excellence. Oh my gosh. Apostates have left the excellence of Islam. They must embrace the faith or be put to death. Okay, so now they're speaking about apostates. Capitation tax is not imposed upon apostates. They must either repent or die. Shafi holds that it is lawful to make slaves of the idolaters of Arabia. So at the time there were Jews, Christians, and other groups in Arabia. So yeah, fantastic. Shafi, wonderful guy. So, if a Muslim army conquers the idolaters of Arabia or apostates, welcome. I see we have a new subscriber, RJ. So, if a Muslim army conquers the idolaters or apostates, their wives and children are plunder. Again, owned by the states, they are property. Right? So you can become property under Islamic law. And that is, they become the property of the state. It says so in so many words. Because, okay, Sadiq made slaves of the women and children of the blah blah tribe, where they apostatized and divided those slaves among his troops. I wonder what they did with with the women and children. And they slew of the men as did not return to the faith. Okay, and notice, it is upon being conquered that they become public property. Public property. Wonder, do we have that in socialism, where everything belongs to the people? I wonder, public property. You know, it's public. Sounds a little socialist. I'm not sure where I'm getting this idea. I wonder where Marx got his crappy ideas from. So let's continue. Let me see, 228. Oh, I've gone too far here. We just. Oh. It says that the term apostates applies not only to individuals but also to whole tribes. Okay, so whole tribes can apostatize. So let me see what Dragon there says Islam, Taslam, convert, pay or die. Very peaceful, correct. So Bill Shepherd said, this is why I don't or won't give to a Muslim charity. Correct. I would strongly recommend we don't do that, because yes, this is what it funds. And Built for Speed says, mafia style, either you do or there'll be consequences. What consequences? Why would I be afraid of why are so many people afraid of showing their face on YouTube? Because it's a religion of peace, right? Nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about. Okay. Jimmy English says, love your channel, Lloyd, but I'm more and more disturbed by this knowledge of Sharia. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you do, but understand, you've been spoon-fed, and unfortunately, Christian apologists are unfortunately party to this. They aid and abet the misrepresentation of Islam by focusing on just Quran and Hadith. Islam is far beyond. Now, part of this problem, and I, again, at risk of offending people, part of the problem is the Protestant concept of sola scriptura, right? Now, I'm not getting into a discussion of the biblical or unbiblical nature of sola scriptura, but the problem is for Protestants, they believe that the Bible is everything. And therefore, they apply that same concept to Islam and think the Quran is everything, which is quite bluntly. So, the Quran can be ignored. You can take it and drop it in the Nile like the Muslims did. It is not necessary for Islam to function anymore. It has been fully read, digested, everything has been extracted, and what remains in Islam, how Islam is finally interpreted, is in the Sharia. The Sharia is Islam in practice. The Quran was Islam in theory, a nascent form, an early version. It's now, it's done. Everything's been extracted. It's like the raw material, okay? It's like to make a cake, you need a little bit of milk and a little bit of butter. But a little bit of milk and a little bit of butter is not a cake. Understand? Those are just the raw materials. The cake, the party, that is all the Sharia. That is the fiqh. Okay? Quranists are half Muslim. So yeah, then in fact, according to Islam, according to the Sharia, you're an apostate. Okay? So understand that the problem is that, again, and I need to stress this, the Quran is a waste of your time. I've said this before. Once you learn the Sharia, then you'll understand the Quran. Then you'll understand the Hadith. But understand the Hadith, the tafsir in the Quran, throw it away. Pretend they don't exist. Spend a month pretending that that literature does not exist. It was never written. Just read the Sharia. That explains Islam, black and white, no ambiguities. Okay, so understand, and that again, the concept of sola scriptura does not apply in Islam. But because people are so used to it, they think, well, that's Islam. And unfortunately, name any apologist you like on YouTube. Every single one of them plays into, they've been indoctrinated by the Muslims to believe this, and they play into this, and they perpetuate this false idea. If you want to understand Islam, you do not need the Quran, you don't need the Hadith, you don't need the tafsir. You just go straight to the Sharia. Then you can see where the sources of the Sharia rulings derive from those sources, but the Sharia is the final interpretation agreed upon by all of the scholars. I'll pause there and we just read what has been said. Josie Wales says Muslim charity can only be used by the followers of Islam, correct? That's why there's the Red Cross and the Red Crescent. Red Cross pays money to Red Crescent, but Red Crescent won't pay money to Red Cross. True, they'll do it for political gain, right? As a political act, they'll do it, to make nice. But if it's XYZ, this is what your right hand possesses. Yep. Okay, Jimmy English. Hopefully, I've answered that question. Sharia is the jurisprudence of Islam, correct? But it's more than jurisprudence. There are two aspects. Sharia is one aspect. It's the legalistic aspect, right? Then you've got the Hakika, which is the spiritual aspect, which is the exclusive domain of the major scholars. Not even your imams, your sheikhs, your qadis. It is the domain of the Sufis. Understand? So the spiritual aspect of Islam, that practice is done by these guys, and these guys do that on behalf of all of the Muslims. So the average Muslim is just following orders, literally following orders. Remember, they don't have priests, they have lawyers, right? And above them stands the Sufis. These are the spiritual guys. Okay, let's see. Welcome, Arnold, Nathaniel. Islam says, I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse, and that is true. And yeah, exactly. And half the time you just speak to the Muslims on YouTube, and it's like they make an offer you can't understand. So, okay. So, Josie was interesting. Where the croissant and kafir originated? Have you listened to explaining? Okay, so interesting where the croissant. Okay, so let's get into a short story. Okay, the okay, well, let me try and tell the story. The term croissant. Okay, so let's look at some of the history of that term. The croissant, the humble French croissant, or rather, it should be Viennese croissant technically, but what you have is the Muslims had invaded Austria, and they'd nearly captured Vienna in the 1500s, about 1543, somewhere around there. Okay, and then they decided to go back. Now, what happened was the ambassador from Vienna at the time, the Habsburg Empire, was in Turkey, speaking with whatever, they met somewhere because the Turks were demanding the fortress of Ur on the Danube as tribute, as payment, because they claimed that they owned it and they wanted that territory. And the Habsburg Empire refused to give them this fortress because they obviously felt that this would give them a beachhead into Europe's territory and allow them to launch an attack on Europe. So what happened was the ambassador said to the Turkish ambassador, the fortress may be taken by force of arms, not by force of words. And basically, this was an open declaration of war, because he said, well, look, if you want it, come and take it. Understand? And the Turks saw this as a declaration of war because they were looking to make a war anyway, because they wanted to invade Europe. Their purpose was to take Vienna, which at the time was the capital of Europe, effectively, and then from there they were going to go to Rome, and they were going to stable their horses, as they said, in St. Peter's, right, in the Basilica of St. Peter's. So they had about 18 months to prepare for war, right? So eventually the Islamic army, the largest Islamic army to ever invade Europe, about 300,000 people, about 240,000 active troops, and then support people and so on, invaded into Europe, right? And they eventually surrounded Vienna, and they completely surrounded the city. And what happened is the king of Vienna, so the Habsburg, the emperor, I can't remember his name, the Habsburg emperor, he retreated to Linz with about 20,000 troops, which is not a lot to deal with 240,000, and there was something like 15,000 troops inside of the city of Vienna, which at one time had a massive wall built around it, a massive wall surrounding it. And they also had excellent Germans. They had Germans who were there to support them, and they had Austrians, and they had some other forces inside. 15,000 troops against 300 to 360,000. The exact numbers are all unclear. So what happened is they obviously called for support from the Pope, and the Pope funded money towards this, and the Polish king, King Jan Sobieski III, brought help. He brought 84,000 troops. So he joined forces with the remaining Habsburg Empire troops, and they came to Vienna. And of course, this was 1683 now. On September the 10th, 1683, they arrived above Vienna. Now, there was the Kallenberg above Vienna, and he basically, so on September the 11th, 1683, Jan Sobieski made it to the top of the Kallenberg, and he looked down and he said to his commanders, when he saw the encampment, the Ottoman encampment, he said, this man, so Pasha Kara Mustafa, or Black Mustafa, because he was known as a very corrupt man, so his nickname was Black Mustafa, for taking bribes, and he was very venal. So he said, this man is badly encamped. He knows nothing of war. Surely we will defeat him. This was September the 11th, 1683. At 4 a.m., September the 12th, the Polish army, along with the other troops, went to war, and they attacked the Ottoman troops. Now, what happened is the battle lasted until 4 p.m., but it was about 6 p.m., about 4 or 6 p.m., that the Ottomans decided, look, they had force of numbers. They were dealing with 80,000 troops, and they had about 300,000 people roughly on their side, a 3-to-1 advantage. And remember, the troops inside were dealing with a 15-to-1 disadvantage, right? So they'd been bombarded, but the walls were so thick, and also they had poor cannons, weak cannons. The Ottomans had weak cannons, poor cannons. They couldn't penetrate the wall. So the Germans and the Austrians who were mounted on the walls had much better cannons and much better skills. The problem is they were running out of water, they were running out of food, they were running out of time. And because of the dead, they were eventually started to deal with disease. So then, but they were very good shots. They're much better fighters, much better trained than the Ottomans were, and they were able to repel all the attacks. But what happened was sappers mined under the walls, and they blew out sections of the wall. And when this happened at one time, so for 60 days they held out. Okay, 60 days they held out. They managed to fight them back. They managed to almost breach the wall, but the Germans, the Austrians fought them off, held them back. So then King Jan Sobieski arrived, and on September the 12th at 6 p.m., the Ottomans decided to rally for a single major offensive. And Sobieski ran, at that point, the largest cavalry charge in history. 15,000 light cavalry, bolstered by 3,000 of Poland's very famous at the time winged hussars, who at that point had not been defeated in combat for 125 years. They came screaming down the hill, and they shattered the Turkish army. They ran right into the center of the army, right into the center of the tent. Kara Mustafa escaped. The Turkish army was shattered. The Germans opened the gates of Vienna. They came out and attacked from the rear, so it was a complete slaughter. They so that, and of course, Karam Mustafa was punished. He was strangled, right, by the as punishment for his failure, for his loss. Was the biggest loss the Turks had ever suffered. But it should be noted that if you read the works of Osama bin Laden, the reason he chose September the 11th, conspiracy theories aside, was that on September the 11th, Islam was dominant in Europe. It was about to topple Western civilization. It was about to be dominant and take Western civilization. And unfortunately, the Polish put an end to that idea in 1683. So yeah, that was a pretty bad blow. So the reason that September the 11th was important to, as I said, conspiracy theories aside, and grey aliens and Bigfoot and the Illuminati aside, the reason it's important to them is that that was the date that they were dominant, and that's the date they were defeated. He wanted to roll the clock back to September the 11th, 1683. That's why that date's important. Okay, so I'm gonna read into the comments. I hope that was interesting. Okay, so it sounds like a good book. Okay, so Soldiers with Wings. Okay, 30 minutes. So yeah. Okay, history likes to repeat. We gotta send them back. Eva, if you get the winged sauce going, I'll join up. Okay. Okay, so let me continue with this just so that we can finish up with this stuff on jizya. Okay. So just so you have a taste of, so capitation tax is a substitute for destruction, okay, and it's a substitute for aid in the wars of the faith, okay. So they're going to use the money to fight people, okay, and they're punishing you for not joining them in this purpose, for not fighting against other non-Muslims. Oh man, Jimmy English says, have you heard about the car bomb in Liverpool, UK today? No, I did not know about that. Okay, so exactly, BMW says peak of Islam. If you take Vienna, you can take Rome, and that was the intention, correct? So, a monk is not to be destroyed where he does not mix with mankind, and capitation tax with respect to them would be for the purpose of warding off destruction. So the monk would still have to pay it so that the Muslims don't kill him. Let's go here and see what we have. Capitation tax is a species, or jizya, is a species of punishment. It is inflicted, punishment inflicted upon infidels on account of their infidelity, whence it is termed jizyat, which is derived from jizya, meaning retribution. It is revenge. Okay? So understand, the capitation tax, the jizya, is a punishment and it is a revenge for you not joining them to fight against others. Let's see. Uh, Theva says, God, honor, motherland. Excellent stuff. We will, yeah, one day we'll get together and we'll raise a toast and we will say those words. Okay? So, and Sunny Sleep says, against the Hindus, they would agree not to attack at night and then attack at night. Of course, of course. Night raids, in fact, so the night raids was the example, and I did discuss this the last time in the previous shows. In the night raids, of course, Muhammad sets the sunnah, the example of doing that without warning, because they state that this must be, an attack must be met with a warning first. They have to first warn you and say pay, and then we'll attack. But in the example of the night raid, he did this without warning. He just attacked suddenly, burned the village, took the women, killed the men, and yeah. So yes, that is part of the sunnah. And let's see. So I will. Okay, it's almost 1 hour. So let me see. So the capitation tax is a punishment inflicted upon infidels for their obstinacy in infidelity. So you will not stay loyal to Allah. You will not become loyal to Allah. You will not marry yourself to this deity Allah. And therefore you are guilty of infidelity and you're being punished for it. And of course the regents of Allah on earth are the Muslims. And the Muslims, the regents, have to then carry out the instructions of their master. Okay? And that's what they mean. So notice it says here that it must be exacted in a mortifying and humiliating manner. So what does mortifying mean? So let's have a look. In other words, they're going to scare you to death. Yeah. Mortifying, causing feelings of strong shame or embarrassment. So in other words, yeah, Very embarrassing. Shame and embarrassment. Okay, so the jizya must be extracted in a way that causes you embarrassment and humiliation, right? So, yeah, so the man collecting it must be standing, and according to one tradition, the collector, the tax collector, now we know that Jesus loved tax collectors, right? According to one tradition, the collector is to seize him by the throat and shake him, saying, "Pay your tax, dhimmi." Right, so they have, let's see here, they have to grab you by the throat and shake you and say, "Pay your tax, dhimmi." And therefore, it is evident that capitation tax is a punishment. And where two punishments come together, they are compounded. Secondly, capitation tax is a substitute for death. It is a substitute for the death of infidels who are liable to be put to death only in the future. In other words, you are delaying your death. Okay, Edkin says mortify, embarrass as if killing. Okay, Jimmy English, yes, looks like a cab pulled up at the hospital with a bomb. One dead so far. Good gosh. Yeah, good grief. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so there you go. That's jihad for you. Right? Let's have a look and see what they say here. The construction of churches or synagogues in the Muslim territory is unlawful, this being forbidden. So yeah, you cannot construct those. That's illegal. That's not allowed. Dhimmis should not be permitted to celebrate the tokens of infidelity. Therefore, you cannot celebrate your religious services in public. Okay? And dhimmis are to be prohibited from constructing churches or synagogues. Excellent. So in other words, yeah, you cannot gloat supposedly about the fact that you're not a Muslim and belong to a different religion. So in the territory of Arabia, dhimmis are prohibited from constructing churches or synagogues in cities or villages because the Prophet has said two religions cannot be professed together in the peninsula of Arabia. So it behoves the Imam to make a distinction between Muslims and dhimmis in point of dress and equipage. Dress and, of course, the things that you carry, the things you have with you, your possessions. It is therefore not allowable for dhimmis to ride upon horses or to use armor, or use the same saddles and wear the same garments or headdresses as Muslims, right? Or nor can you wear the kiftage openly. The kiftage is a wooden cord or belt which the zimmis wear around, blah, blah, blah. If they ride upon any animal, like the panniers of an ass, okay, so in other words, they want you to wear, like, also, if you're riding an ass, you have to wear like a wooden saddle. They speak of that because you have to be uncomfortable. Muslims are to be held in honor, contrary to dhimmis who are not to be held in honor. Whence it is that they are not called saluted first. In other words, they must not greet you first. You must greet them first. And if there were no outward signs to distinguish Muslims from dhimmis, these might be treated with the same respect, which is not allowed. That's why you must wear the Star of David sewn onto your jacket so that we can see who you are. I wonder where the Nazis got that idea. Can't tell. Can't think. If you guys can think of anyone, just let me know. So, understand, therefore, you must distinguish the dhimmis from the Muslims so that you do not accidentally treat the dhimmi with any respect. I guess I'll pause there. Hopefully that was instructive and enlightening. And could it be that, okay, you asked, could it be that Islam is broken into political, religious, and legal, political, legal, and I think you deleted the comment, but so Islam has a legal component, a political component. What we would call the religious, what we know of Islam, is actually their political, religious, legal, sorry, political, legal component. We as non-Muslims are not exposed to, and in fact, lay Muslims are not either. Lay Muslims and non-Muslims like us, we are not exposed to the spiritual / religious component of Islam. That is purely for the main scholars, the high-level scholars, the Sufis, basically. That is purely reserved to them, though those practices are purely for them to do. It's not for us to know. It's not for anyone else to know. So lay Muslims like us are exposed to the legal aspects of Islam, the regulatory, the law, the civil law. That's all we see. Okay, those are not religious practices. Those are injunctions, legal injunctions imposed. So you just follow orders, and this is all that is required. This is what is required for ihsan, or the perfection of faith. It's just, these are the orders, do these. Pray 5 times a day, keep your mouth shut, and so on. That's basically it. Historical Christianity. Which point was a great point? Do let me know. Let me see if I've missed anything. The king of Indonesia was told, convert or we invade and slaughter. So you converted. Well, yeah, I mean, because it's a religion of peace, right? Arnold says, praying for the victims of today's atrocity. Yeah, yeah. It's really sad. So, guys, I think I've made my point with regards to dhimmis in Islam. There's only a little bit left here. I'll just mention, okay, I'll just finish this with a couple of pages and it should be done. Let me see. Yeah, it's okay. There's lots more actually, but I just don't want to keep going with this because I think I've made my point that you understand what dhimmitude is about. And I want to mention one other thing. So dhimmis, and then let me do one more word. There was another word the next word I was going to do was down here. So hopefully you've learned some history today. You've learned some interesting things. Deen, okay? Religion, the obligations which Allah imposes upon man, the domain of divine prescriptions concerning acts of worship and everything involved. But I have shown you guys the definition of deen before. And for anyone who's new, let me go there again just so you can look this up yourself. Deen. This is Deen. Let's have a look here. Deen. There are four meanings in Deen. The first is subjugation or dominance, or legislative authority, to put pressure to be obedient, using power to enslave or to make someone obedient. Dintahum fadanu means I subjugated them so they obeyed me. The second meaning is obedience, bondage, subordination, and domination by someone, bearing humiliation under subjugation and the power of others. Right? The obedient tribe is called Qawmun Dahinum, meaning, and here Deen does not mean religion, it means obedience. So here it doesn't mean religion. In the second level, it doesn't mean religion. Let's have a look. The third meaning is rules, regulations, ideology, doctrine, custom, tradition, or, or, or religion. Okay? So understand this is religion is stuck down here after, like, you see 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12, after like 12 previous meanings, now you get religion. Historical Christianity says Islam has an authority structure, and it does exactly. Okay. So, Bill to Speed, I was asking if Islam could be interpreted as three components: political, religious, and social. Also military. Don't forget military. And then, of course, there is the occult. Okay. Let me show you this. So the word occult occurs in Hamas. Now, if you go through the Hamas charter, okay, if you go through the Hamas charter, right, which is, so it says Hamas, okay, you know there's two ruling authorities in Palestine. You have Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. But let's look at Hamas for a second. Let's look at Article 2 of their charter. The Islamic resistance movement, that's Hamas, is one of the wings of the Muslim Brotherhood in Palestine. So they are Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood movement is a universal organization, a worldwide organization, which constitutes the largest Islamic movement in modern times. It is characterized by its deep understanding, accurate comprehension, and its complete embrace of all Islamic concepts, which is culture, creed, politics, economics, education, society, justice, and judgment, law. Right? So understand, as well as the spreading of Islam, that's dawah, education, art, information, and very curiously, the science of the occult. What could that mean? I have no idea. The science of the occult. Why would Islam, which is pure, have to deal with the occult? And of course, conversion to Islam. So understand, Hassan al-Banna was a Sufi. This is the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, was a Sufi and a Freemason. Right? Sufi and Freemason. Now, the actually, while we are at this, okay, since we're here, okay, so let's have a look at this. This is the book, The Sufis, by Idris Shah. Okay, now let's have a look. He says in his book, The Sufis are an ancient spiritual Freemasonry. He says, indeed, Freemasonry itself began as a Sufi society. It first reached England in the reign of King Athelstan, 924 to 939. Now, understand this is irrelevant. It's just a time marker to give you an approximate date. I know someone who focused and harped on this as if it was important. Like, it's irrelevant. It's just to give you a rough idea. And it was introduced into Scotland, disguised as a craft guild at the beginning of the 14th century, doubtless by the Knights Templar. So Freemasonry comes out of the Sufis. The Sufis took it to England and then introduced it into Scotland, disguised as a craft guild by the Knights Templar. So there's plenty of claims like this. When you start to look, you'll start to find claims of this nature. Josie Wales says, the deeper I delve into the Islamic ideology, the more horrific and diabolical it proves itself to be. Oh, dude, you're just getting started. Yeah. So understand, the Sufis claim to be the founders of Freemasonry, of Western Freemasonry, because they claim to be the original Freemasons. Now, of course, you know there's a higher level of Freemason called a Shriner. The Shriners are overtly, openly Islamic, right? The Shriners, the level above. So to become a Shriner, you first have to become a high-level Freemason, and then you can qualify. So not all Freemasons are Shriners, but all Shriners are Freemasons. Okay? So understand, the Sufis make the claim that they are the original. I've just shown you two sources that both state that they are the original Freemasons. And of course, with regards to the Knights Templar, now look, the standard narrative, everyone loves the standard narrative, and everyone loves the story of the Knights Templar as the shining, faultless heroes who can do no wrong and walk on water. But do understand that after the wars, right, after the Crusades ended, the Templars pretty much didn't have a lot to do. Okay, I mean, I'm just going to, don't quote me on this, I'm just going to give you a rough overview. The Templars had a lot of money, and they started to utilize that money. They became like the bankers of the day. Just like people hate the Rothschilds of today, the Templars back then were the Rothschilds of the day. Okay? Now, everyone loves to push the idea that the Templars were squeaky clean and incredibly pure, and oh my God, they were amazing. Go through the history. First of all, everyone claims that the Catholic Church punished the Templars because they wanted the Templars' money. Now, we can discuss that at another time, right? However, the Templars had a long history for at least a century prior to them being attacked. In fact, it's crazy that they weren't disbanded sooner, because the idea of disbanding them had come up long before, because the Templars were... Okay, the scholars of history are not unanimous by any means whatsoever that the Templars are innocent of whatever crimes they were accused of. There is no consensus on that fact. The Templars were, for more than a century, accused of collaboration with Muslims. They were accused of collaborating with the enemy. In fact, if you look at one of the greatest enemies of Islam, if you look at Salahuddin, he joined the Templars. Okay? They started to accept Muslims into the order. They are accused of becoming Sufis. Right? So understand, the Templars had developed a very bad reputation and were by many disliked long before. And there was a taint, an air of them being traitors long before they were taken down. It was just a matter of time, right? So they everyone loves to push the idea that the Catholic Church bad because that suits the propaganda against the Catholic Church, and the Templars good. Look into the Templars, they were dirty. A lot of people will tell you the Templars did a lot of dirty things, and there were a lot of things that weren't proven, but people thought, Templars dirty, they did this. They collaborated with the enemy, they were hated, and they were hated for multiple reasons, and therefore you need to look into this. So yeah, the Templars, that's a much more complex issue than the standard narrative allows for. I'll pause here, guys. I'm done. So this is from the book itself, and oh, by the way, let me read this. This is one last thing that would be very interesting to you. So this is from the book itself. This is written by Richard Burton. Is it? Who did the Robert Graves did the introduction to this. The Sufis are an ancient spiritual Freemasonry. Indeed, Freemasonry began as a Sufi society. It was introduced into Scotland disguised as a craft guild through deception at the beginning of the 14th century by the Knights Templars. Its reformation in the early 18th century London by a group of Protestant sages who mistook the Islamic, the Saracen terms for Hebrew, has obscured many of its early traditions. So in other words, according to this scholar, according to this guy, whatever, according to this person, according to this book, the whole crazy conspiracy of the Freemasons is pinned on the Jews because a bunch of Protestant priests couldn't differentiate between Arabic and Hebrew, and therefore the Jews got blamed. When meanwhile it was Arabic, Saracen. So it was all the whole Freemason thing was the Muslims, the Arabs, not the Jews. These idiots apparently couldn't tell the difference between Arabic script and Hebrew script, and they blamed the Jews. Well, the fact is, of course, as we know, they hated the Jews anyway. Luther hated him, some Jews, but we'll get into that another day. But Luther was, how can I put this politely, an asshole. And so, yeah. So anyway, so there you go. So Richard Burton, translator of the 1001 Nights, being both a Freemason and a Sufi, first pointed out the close relationship between the two societies. So Gabriel, yeah, this makes sense. Scary stuff. Yeah. So look, I mean, we'll talk about Luther another time. Man, there's a lot of work there. Good grief, it's gonna take me months, but to unpack all that, it's insane. Once you start learning a few things about Luther, that's interesting, very interesting. The same about the Templars, the Sufis. But look, seriously, once you dig, when you know where to look and know what to look for, you'll find the Muslims, Islam, the Sufis behind all of this stuff. The Freemasons. I'll get into that. We have dug in the past. So guys, any last questions before I call it a night? DW, thank you very much for your kind words. Much appreciated. Built to speed. You're very welcome. I'm glad I could answer that question. Yeah, sorry, Arnold. Yeah, look, my superpower is actually sarcasm. Sorry about that. It's like, yeah, you know, when I lived in the Middle East, I had this calling to speak about these issues because I was exposed to them on a daily basis. And I haven't told a lot of people this story, but for about 4 years, I had this, it's hard to explain, this voice in the back of my head just screaming at me saying, Lloyd, you need to talk about this. Lloyd, you need to go online. It was actually Sonia Azam that actually got me over that line and got me to actually do something. So thanks, Sonia, for that. And then that voice stopped bothering me, but it wouldn't let me sleep. It's like this voice kept saying, Lloyd, you have to do this. And I recall like saying, look, I'm not sure I'm the best guy to do this because I tend to say what I think, and I don't always I'm not always as well spoken and as academic as as some people could be. And yeah, so that was my little conversation with God, right? And I said, look, I mean, we're gonna have to do this sarcasm and all, and so that's that. So what's my view of the hybrid war at your border with Belarus? To be honest, I don't know a great deal. I can't answer you very much there at the moment, but the Russians have always wanted to own this region, so some things don't change, I guess. So let me see. Have you come across the Red Dragon sect from Europe? No, Gabriel. What is that? What's the Red Dragon sect? I have no idea. Ricky, you're very welcome. Arnold, is it the spiritual gift? Man, I have no idea. Do you know how much reading this takes? You know how much research, how many books, how much time? You'd be amazed. Strange how God calls the unqualified. Yeah, yeah. Um, Look, the one difference is I didn't operate as an academic. I mean, I used to work in close protection. My job was to make sure that person A didn't kill person B, and I was the guy in the middle. And then, of course, when I started working in national defense, my job was to make sure that crazy people didn't blow things up and kill groups of people with whatever means they had at their disposal. Talking Al Qaeda, ISIS, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, and so on. That was my job. So I come at this from a military perspective, not from an evangelical perspective. I was to some degree trained to fight and to understand political warfare, to understand propaganda narratives and how to deal with that. So I come at this from this perspective. I don't come at it from an academic perspective. I mean, I've had people try to kill me, and it's a little different when you realize the danger, as opposed to it's like you're sitting in an ivory tower at university and you've never actually dealt with danger. Okay, so am I safe out there? I think so. I'm generally a little bit more dangerous than most of the people I'm going to meet. So, okay, guys, I'll call it a night. I hope that was interesting and educational, and we shall see you guys next time. Okay, so anyway, guys, thank you very much for the time. Oh, I'm going to play a small outro that someone made for me. I hate these things at the beginning, they annoy me, but you might find it interesting. Hopefully, the audio comes through. Okay, cheers, guys. Good night.